It's now recording. Thank you. So, the title of your new album now, it seems, to echo an idea that has guided Black American expression for decades. Marvin asking what's going on, Sly Stone answering there's a riot going on. Public Enemy asking or demanding to bring the noise. But I don't think there has ever been a stranger time than this one, this now that you talk about, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, at least in my lifetime, we have been confronted with a lot of like reoccurring issues. But if you throw in, our leadership for the last 4 years and the pandemic in my life, I haven't experienced this type of scenario before. So yeah, it seemed like particularly the pandemic, it felt like a moment to comment on or capture, Black Monument. Our record came out in 2019. And we recorded it in 2018, and a bunch of the material was written over the couple of years before that. And I really felt moved to create something new that was like, what if Black Monument said something in this climate? What would it sound like? So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about the Black Monument Ensemble. What would you say, besides your personality, your ideas, of course, but is the fourth drawing all these talents together, gluing them?
Mm-hmm. I think Black Monument Ensemble is like a way of continuing a long-standing conversation that many other artists have started. And I think that working in the idea of community was very important to me. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways of doing that musically was to collect a lot of musicians and artists, singers from all over Chicago. Bringing their different perspectives and different talents to the material. So if you like the group in its kind of largest could be like 16, 17 people. So then you take their connections and their people that they work with, you really begin to expand out, and you have like a larger like group of people that are connected to the music and the sounds and the movement that are being made. So I was interested in, a cross section of perspectives and age ranges from, all across Chicago. So I think that one of the wonderful things about Black Monument is that even though I'm shepherding this project, it's voiced by so many people.
What is it there in the water in Chicago that makes it such an amazing city? The talent coming out of that town is amazing for someone across the ocean to just imagine,
Yeah, well, literally, there's probably lead in the water, but you don't want that. I think that Chicago just has a really rich history, musical history. But also, since I've been here since 1988. There's been so many people that have been like working and creating for years and years and years. And it's been a really generous space to make music and art. And I feel like recent difficult times has really strengthened the community. in so many ways. So a lot of the stuff that you're seeing now, the groundwork has been laid for a long time. People have been doing it, but when hard times came up, people kind of reached out to each other. And I feel like also in these difficult times, people reach out to the arts in ways that they hadn't before. A friend of mine made the argument that in the apocalypse, being an artist was not that useful, you know? But, you know, this is kind of as close as many of us have gotten to an apocalypse. And the first thing people turned to was the arts. So people turned on their computers and looked for dance and looked for music and looked for poetry. So it's been really revelatory.
I would say that being an artist can be useful during the apocalypse in case you are hired, you know, to create the soundtrack to the apocalypse.
Yeah.
In case you are hired to paint the picture of the apocalypse. So yeah, I would say that arts can be useful. But you know, what interests me and what I have been reading about Chicago, and not only Chicago, but even in other cities like New York or Los Angeles, is how important music is in building those communities that you talk about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I feel, I mean, I kind of look at the arts across the board as something that really helps generate different ways of thinking. So music and visual arts and dance and poetry, these are all life-saving arts, you know? So when they are, you know, fostered and provided as options, you can really change people's lives, I think.
And talking about this, what would you say were, you know, the collective models that were tested in the past that have inspired your own approach to, you know, building communities and using art as a tool to strengthen those communities?
Well, there's a lot of things that I draw from that I found kind of inspirational. Like in Chicago, there was a art collective named Afro Cobra in the 60s. They were really inspiring to me. They, you know, made art for the Black community, and they kept the prices really cheap so people could have them. And they put messaging in their work that they wanted, that they thought the Black community needed to hear. I thought that was really a beautiful and inspiring collective. The AACM, I think, is super inspiring. There was a woman named Dr. Margaret Burroughs who founded the DuSable Museum, but also was a poet and printmaker and taught at Stateville Correctional Center, where I teach. So she taught art where I taught. So there are all these really amazing people that have, you know, set examples. Artists, actors like, you know, Ozzie Davis and Ruby Dee, who would really use their platform to highlight other people. There are really great models that have existed already that you just need to like learn from their lessons and see if you can apply it to now.
You mentioned the art in the prison system, and you yourself are teaching in that context, and that must be an amazing and very enriching and also dramatic experience. Can you tell me a little bit about it? How has it affected you?
I think teaching at Stateville, which is a maximum security men's prison, that really transformed my life in unknown ways, but it really kind of set me straight on a lot of where I wanted to focus my attention. It really helped me. It helped me realize, I already knew, but it helped crystallize or make clear that I was really interested in getting my art and my music to have an impact on people that weren't necessarily connected to an art world or connected to a music scene. How do you make connections and make music and art that reaches people that, you know, didn't spend their time and necessarily spend their time in art school or in the bars and clubs, you know? So working on projects that got the voices of people from behind the walls of prisons out to people that don't get to hear from them was really important and really has made a big impact on me. So I think of the difficulties that people have, you know, that are subject to our justice system. And I think about the students in schools that in underserved areas. And I think about how, you know, art can be connective and inspiring and figure out ways of, you know, making my work accessible, but also connecting to those communities, whether I'm teaching or whether I'm playing or, you know, just, you know, I think prison really, kind of changed a worldview in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, back to the Black Monument Ensemble. You have amazing talents, you know, working in that collective. Ben Lamar Gay, Angel Bat David. They are leaders on their own right, fronting their own projects. So how does that, you know, energy gets focused by you? How do you manage to you know, work with so many different people and channeling your ideas through their own talents?
Well, I feel like the hardest part is, you know, the hardest part is just scheduling, actually.
Okay.
Emails is the hardest part, you know?
So logistics is
logistics, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, okay.
I learned from Rob Mazurek. I do know Rob Mazurek.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So I learned from Rob Mazurek and being part of the Exploding Star Orchestra that it's really great and best to, I mean, what Rob does for me in that group is he sets up a framework and then lets me be me within that framework and trusts me to do the thing that I do. And so my goal has been in this project is to set up a framework, make the song exist, and then leave space for each musician to add what they feel strongly about it. If I don't like it, or if it's not, I might say something. But for the most part, I've picked people to work with whose sensibilities are connected to mine, and they can, whatever they bring, most of the time it's brilliant, you know? Dana Hall is a educator and a master jazz musician, and Arif Smith is an educator and a phenomenal percussionist beyond what I can perceive. So when I bring something to them, they're always going to come up with something that I haven't thought of, you know? So it's not a good idea to be too, you know, dictatorial about what you want someone else to do that has a lot more, you know, knowledge about their instrument than you do. So I think really it's about, you know, being on the same vibe and creating a atmosphere or an environment that people can feel that their contribution is honored and that they have freedom to be themselves inside the group.
And how do you tune that? I mean, for instance, before a session, is there like a big dinner or a big conversation? Do you have like any kind of ritual or habit that gets people in that frame of mind that you want to pursue at any given moment?
That's a good question. I think it might be, there's less of a ritual like dinner, that sort of thing, though I try to make sure I have food, but I think it's more the kind of the continued friendship and connection when we're not playing. Throughout this pandemic, I really wanted to, I really wanted to make connections with the players, even though we weren't playing. So I would text and check in with people. If I saw an interesting documentary, I would forward that to people and have conversations about whatever WandaVision or whatever thing was happening. And I think that kind of connection is maybe the strength of the group, because it's not as important to me to hire people, but to have people that I feel connected to in my regular life. And if you feel connected in regular life, then it's easier to get the vibe and the music together.
Angel Bat David, for instance, she went through a rough patch during the pandemic. She was hospitalized, and I'm guessing you made sure that she was getting your good and positive energy, and that's what keeps all this going, I imagine.
Yeah, I did my best. Actually, I talked to Scotty a lot over at International Anthem and texted often, made sure that the other members were updated in her condition, and people checked in with her. It was really lovely to see how people kind of got together. I found out later that one of the singers, Erica, also had COVID. She was not hospitalized, but I didn't find out at the time. Somehow no one told me. So I had to then check back in with her and make sure she was doing okay. But it's been as it's really important to support your friends and family in this time.
No doubt. How much of what we hear in the album, is the result of those 3 days sessions that you guys recorded? Or, is there much post-production done on the material that you recorded there? Experimental Sound Studio, yeah?
Experimental Sound Studio, yeah. I think that there was a fair amount of me kind of listening back. I mean, mixing was a challenge, just in general. Alex and I tried to mix over the internet on headphones. And then eventually, because we weren't getting together to mix, eventually, after a couple, going through the process, we felt it might be better for Alex to do a couple mixes on his own and then have me give him feedback. But part of the session with Arif and Dana and Ben, that was a separate session. Part of that session, I had an idea for a song that was not put together yet. So I had them play. I played with Dana and Arif with my sampler, played with them, recorded, 20 minutes of material with them. And then when Ben arrived, they had left. I had Ben and I play together with the same samples. And then I took all that material and created a song out of it. So that one was played in real life, but then I had to, put it together afterwards. So things like that also happened, hopefully keeping in the spirit of the larger project. But I felt like, different techniques are totally valid in terms of building material, you know.
Just personally curious, what sampler do you use, or do you have more than one?
What sampler do I use?
Yeah.
SP555. That's the Roland sampler.
Okay.
I followed the Dr. Sample. Roland made these Dr. samples over the years, and then I landed on the SP555 and just really love it. It's one of my best friends.
Okay. Cool. So a couple more questions, and I'll let you go. There's this sense of shift in the world right now. Even in Portugal, there are now issues of race, historic colonialism, entering the public sphere for the very first time. We had our revolution in '74. We left our ex-colonies in Africa in 1974, but all these years, there's never been a discussion about the effects of that, staining our history, and it's now being discussed openly. Although there are also very dangerous signs from the right wing rising all over Europe, etc., etc. But what I want to know is, are you a hopeful person looking at the world right now and all these, shifts and conversations and struggles on the streets, etc.? Do you believe that we'll come out of this better than we entered at the beginning of last year? Because I think part of this is being fueled by the effects of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, I think that
the $1 million question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, as a young person, I got really interested in punk music, right? And as a young person, I was really attracted to kind of the apocalypse. If there was a film, I liked zombie movies. I liked Blade Runner. I liked this dark visions of the world that looked like we were heading towards.
No food.
Exactly. And but now that we live in something that's very similar to the apocalypse, I'm less interested in it. Maybe it's my natural anti-establishment. I like the apocalypse before the rest of everyone else liked the apocalypse, that was a joke, of course. But I think that the job now of the artist is to imagine what is possible, and strive towards that. So I tried to. That was actually part of the difference between, that was actually what I was struggling and interested in researching between Where Future Unfolds and now. I think that Where Future Unfolds was several years of me being like, what is going on? These horrible things are happening and no one's really responding to it. Yeah. So now that the spotlight is on all of these kind of terrible reoccurring issues around race and gender and inequality. Yeah. That's like our everyday lives. What would Black Monument say? And I feel like I landed on, Now Forever Momentary Space, which was looking at a moment to imagine what's possible. And that moment is outside the timeline and it's now. So there's a moment that's always available to us to do something that hasn't been done before or make something new possible. And it's now.
Okay. One last question. As I said, I imagine you must be very anxious to present this live. on a stage. Are there already plans for it, or is still, a big unknown that possibility?
Well, there's a question mark. I don't know what's going to happen, but there are plans. There are a couple plans. I'm talking to the Art Institute here in Chicago to do a performance in July, possibly.
Okay.
Hopefully. There's a conversation about putting on a show here, which would be hypothetically a whole new suite of music that was supposed to happen last October, but we're looking to see if it can happen this October. And that would mean that hopefully everyone is vaccinated and we can have rehearsals and we can build everything and play again. And we have kind of rekindled conversations about a short European trip in November, kind of surrounding this festival called La Guess Who. And so it would be a small amount of shows around that. So yeah, these are the questions, right now that they're all kind of in like holding space.
Okay, I was asking because I do some, curating work for a couple of festivals here, and your name is one of the very high on my wish list for if something could happen, that would be great. One last thing, besides the magazine, I also do this radio show called Blue Notes. Notas Azuis is the name in Portuguese, obviously a jazz radio show. I've played your music there a lot in the past, and over the last couple of weeks, I have been playing the single that's came out of the new album. So I would love for you to give me an ID for the show. So the show is called Blue Notes, and it's on Antena 3, Antena 3, which is the name of the radio station. So if you could say something along the lines, hello, my name is, and you are listening to, okay?
Okay. Hi, this is Damon Locks from Black Monument Ensemble. You're listening to Blue Notes on Antenna 3. Thank you very much for listening.
That's just perfect. Nailed it on first take. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
Hopefully we'll meet sometime in the near future, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Be safe.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.